We're gonna have some fast-paced questions and answers today. This is gonna be exciting.
I think we'll get going. People looks like they're coming in. So
Max is gonna cut this part out of the recording.
yeah, cut it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you everyone for showing up. Happy Wednesday.
They're starting right at 11.
Yeah, we are
Just
11.
right at the 11 o'clock moment.
Exactly.
All right, yeah.
And this will be recorded, obviously. So if you really wanted to watch the intro, we'll be sending it out to you later today.
You know, Max, when we send out the recording, what if we like delineate it by all the different questions that we answer today? Assuming people ask questions.
We do that. Yep. So
Say
you'll be
that
able to,
again.
there we go.
There we
Yeah.
go.
So if you'll be able to find any kind of question we'll go over in those chapters. But yeah, I'm Max Folliver. I represent the product engagement team. To my left, we have Peter Thorson. All the way over there, we have Justin. And then I think in Florida and Idaho, we have Cassie and Josh.
Hello.
All right, yeah, and just a reminder, please ask us questions during this. That's the whole point of these AMAs. There's going to be the Q&A button. I'll share this chat with everyone, but that's going to be the way you want to ask us questions. Please, please, please. We have our support team in the back, so they'll be helping answer some of those questions, but hopefully we can address some of those questions live. And appreciate the folks who sent in questions at a time. We're going to be going through those as well. But the first being kind of a basics of kind of LivePlan. You know, I'm meeting with my client for the first time. How would you want that conversation to go? Are we starting in the pitch and plan? What's that first kind of conversation look like with my new client?
Yeah. And before we dive into that, I mean, just want to emphasize, ask us anything.
Yes.
Anything at all.
Yes.
Drop it in there. I'm pretty sure the questions are anonymous or at least aren't visible to your colleagues on today's call. And I know we've got different folks from different walks of life, different sizes of firms, educators at different sizes and types of schools and incubators, programs, funding friends, people who are getting those funds out to small businesses. Ask us anything at all. Just post it, whatever comes to mind. We're off the rails. We're off script today. We're just trying to respond to what you got. Those who submitted questions early, I've seen some of those, so I've been thinking about those. Everyone else, this is a fun, chill time to have an ad lib sort of experience. And we'll edit it out if we totally mess up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, great. So I really encourage anything at all coming in. And if we don't get to your question today, Josh, Cassie, me, Max, Amanda, Patrick, somebody is going to get back to you about whatever questions you ask. So if it's really specific about like a specific feature use or pricing or something like that, we'll probably get to you offline today, but ask anything. Please. For real. Bring it in. I can't encourage that enough. Anyway, what were you saying? You had a question?
Yeah, so I'm a consultant. I'm meeting with my client for the first time. They don't know about LivePlan, but I want to have a productive kind of first meeting with them through LivePlan. And I'm just wondering, what does that conversation look like? I'm sure it's going to be dependent on the client, their business, where they're at, but just a good kind of overview of how you would, you know, if you're in their seat, how would you have that first conversation?
Nice. Yeah, who wants to dive into that?
Yeah, that's open to the panel.
All right, let's start. Let's get on a screen here. So we've got a shared screen on our side here. I'm just going to pop LivePlan open, and we're going to take a look just at the app in general. So if you've and actually let me start from scratch here. So if you've never worked with a client, a lot of times if you work with one of us, you're seeing a screen and it's got stuff entered. Let's just create a new company. So if this is a brand new person, someone you've never met with before, you're starting a new company. I got this because I got, a company here. So anyone want to come up with a name? Max, what's a good name for a new client?
Let's do Grasshopper Landscaping.
Is that something that you've worked out before?
Absolutely.
I need some help with mine. So, all right. And then, hey, what type of business is this? And I'm going to come back to why I care about this field later, but can I just put landscaping?
Yeah, sure. Maybe let's do residential landscaping and see if that.
Residential.
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing we're doing here is just literally setting up the client. We're kind of setting forth the facts that we know about this client. Now, what if you're an educator and this is a startup class, like a how to start up your business? Okay, you can put in a temporary name, maybe even the student's name or the team name that you're working with. I do that in some of the classes I teach. Come back and fill this out later. Everything we put in here can be changed later. Change the currency, change how the plan language, some of the display items language that they'll display in. Fiscal year cycle, if you don't know the answer, set it to January probably. First year of forecast, that's the year that you want the financial forecast to begin and then move forward from. So there's some reasons you might want to backdate that if you're going to import data from QuickBooks. There's some reasons you might want to start that next year. If you know for sure that business is going to start next year, why not do that? You got plenty of room. One thing I like to do, and not everyone prefers this, length of forecast for me personally, a lot of people disagree with me. This is I'm starting off spicy. I like to go 5 years for the length of forecast. I'm going to tell you why in a moment, because I also like to do 3 years of monthly detail. Maybe that's because I work with a lot of like earlier stage businesses. So I want to get through that period of time where they're starting up, growing, getting stable, and then finally having a stable business over time, or maybe even continuing to grow over time. And sometimes that takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years before you start to see those curves normalize, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's the counter argument is 5 years. Like, you're already guessing every time you make a forecast. You're already thinking, you're guessing about the future. 5 years, that's so silly. Who knows what the world's going to be like in 5 years, right? I get it.
Yeah.
If hey, in this case, you're the consultant, do whatever you feel like. And then finally, we're just going to go ahead and create this company. So now, Josh, Justin, Cassie, or I should say one person. Justin, what would you do next? Let's talk.
Yeah, well, one note on that setup piece as well, that's important to keep in mind as you're going through that, is that any of those settings that we just chose, those aren't going to be set in stone once we create the company. So if you or your client aren't quite sure when their forecast should start, how long it should be, how much detail they want in there, what the name of their business is, all that stuff can be changed after the fact. So Peter just showed you go to options and you can get access to all of those again. You do want to make sure, though, if you skip that step where you're thinking about the forecast elements, you definitely want to readdress that before you and the client start putting information in the forecast. You want to feel confident that the start date is what you want, the parameters in terms of length and monthly detail, all of those have been consciously decided on before you jump in there and start putting in numbers, because once the numbers start going in, then you're kind of going down that path that's harder to get out of.
Great. Personally, I love starting with the pitch. If you've ever heard me talk about anything, to me, the way that we've organized the pitch page, and for folks who are academics, colleges of any type, incubators, you probably recognize the format here as something similar to like a lean canvas or a BMC sort of format. Very similar, very compatible. If you do those exercises on Post-it notes, it'll be an easy time getting that stuff in here. For an up and running business, though, I still like to do this work. And now you're seeing it in its blankest possible format, right? There's a brand new company. Just a very quick exercise that I love doing when I sit down with someone. Describe your business in one sentence, right? Just describe it in one sentence. And they say, okay, and I just type whatever they say. Type whatever they say, write it down, blah, blah, blah. And then we go through a little bit more of this. What's the problem we're solving? What is that customer need that you have? What's the solution? That kind of thing. And get a little bit further into this. So I start to know what the client's market is, what their size is, what their hopes, what their dreams are, and then immediately come back to the headline and say, can we do better on this? Here, maybe even suggest, here's how I would describe that business that I just heard you talk about, and get something that feels more descriptive, something that they would share or describe their business as to a strategic partner, to maybe someone who would fund the business, rather than, I think most people's first attempt will be more like marketing language, what they would say to their customers.
Yeah.
So that kind of switch is great. It gets them engaged in the app. It gets them engaged with you, the consultant, and it gets this sort of cyclic process, this idea that even if you've written something, it can always be changed. And so that's how I like to do it. And Josh, anything else? First meeting, this is the first time you sit down with someone. Anything else you'd add for that?
Yeah, I think the additional thought is sometimes advisors are saying, I'm so limited on time. How do I increase efficiency? And you can actually use this pitch page as a first bit of takeaway homework even, and have them go away and work on it. And then when they come back, a lot of it, their first best guess, it's all in there. And then you can quickly move into more of the editing, revision, strategic focus. So it's kind of two options. One, use it as an assessment, ask them questions or just fill it out live in the moment, or use it as a takeaway. And then that helps you to avoid meeting with maybe a client that's spinning their wheels, kicking the tires. If you give them a takeaway and then they don't do it, it's kind of a barrier to entry in a positive way. So that's how we've seen some folks use it, in a couple different ways.
Yeah, obviously for anyone who hasn't seen it, this is kind of what that pitch page looks like when it's a little more filled out. You can really see it's an overview of that company. So it's a very good get to know you sort of format. What Josh said is interesting too. I know we have folks on today's meeting who that idea of kind of not weeding out, what's a nice word to say that?
Filtering.
Qualifying the folks that you work with. You want to make sure that the folks that you work with are dedicated to the process, that kind of thing. I think that's more prevalent in like an SBDC environment, WBC, VBOC, that kind of thing, where sometimes the services are discounted or free. Whereas for a paid consultancy, a lot of times it's like maximize the hours, that kind of thing. So, you don't want to, but you still hear that from those folks as well. I mean, Cassie, do you hear that from especially like accountants who want to do more of that consultative work?
Yeah, absolutely. And where I see a lot of our partners in the pitch is maybe even before their kind of paid relationship starts, a lot of advisors are kind of using the pitch page in their kind of introductory meetings with clients to get to know more about their business, to qualify them if they're right for their services, and to also start kind of introducing them to this idea of growth planning in LivePlan, before kind of getting into the weeds of the numbers and the forecast. So this definitely applied in different ways for kind of the different work that our partners are doing with clients.
And we actually just had a great question come in about, and Cassie, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to help out with this one, but let's say they're looking at this blank page and they want some inspiration, maybe, a sample business plan to get the, creative juices flowing. Like, do we offer, business plans that are specific to industries? Where would we find that? Like, what, if someone wanted to see that, where would they go to get that?
Yeah. So, a former answer to that question would have been, hey, we've got bplans.com. It's a website full of plans, that kind of thing. I'll just reveal, and this is a top secret reveal for those on today's call. We've been working with a lot of our services partners and our internal team who does plan writing and that kind of thing to get permission to anonymize plans that we've written, that we've vetted, that are successfully gained financing or lender support for real world businesses. So we've been anonymizing those. So we've developed a small group of additional sample plans that we could share in LivePlan. I put it to you, friends out there today. Contact me, Josh, Justin, Cassie, Max, whoever you've ever talked to, and ask us what kind of industries we've got and whether we can share one of those plans with your account. I'd love to hear how that works for you. I can't emphasize enough. Sometimes you just got to see what the thing looks like when it's a little further along. And that's great. We appreciate that. We've known that for a long time. So I'm offering anyone on today's time, and maybe edit this out of the video, it's an exclusive offer to all y'all who are here today. I would love to see what you all think about these sample accounts that we're making, because we do want to keep them more easily distributed, more in your hands. We're working on that right now. That's a good question. Yeah.
And I wanted to, in addition to, maybe I bet me and Josh are going down the same road here. There are some areas in the app that we do have samples too. So what Peter was talking about was the ability to actually have us copy like a sample company to your account. So you would be able to switch back and forth with your clients of, here's an example, for example, balance and flow, this one that we use in a lot of our demos, having that as kind of a filled in option to show your clients. And that's definitely something that we can do for our partners. So just let us know. And like Peter mentioned, we're working on creating more of those too. But in the app, there's really two areas. One is when you are editing the business plan, there's going to be that full set of instructions and 2 plan examples in every single topic. So that's one thing. I know I already saw a question about how a lot of clients may be really new to this business planning process, so they need some guidance or help along the way. This is definitely an area in the app that they can kind of get that inspiration as they're writing out each of these sections. Again, each topic will have its own examples here. But But then I'll also highlight that if you go over to this LivePlan Learning tab on the right side of your screen, everybody will see this. You'll see this link to go to our sample business plan library. So this isn't going to copy to your app necessarily to the business plan, but it is a full library organized by industry of over 500 different business plan examples. All of them are completed. So your clients all will have access to this when they're in the software to come and dig into some of these examples. So those are the areas in the app that we have for sample business plans. Anything anyone else wanted to add here?
Well, there was actually another question that came in.
Please.
Is a formal business plan necessary for every single starting of a business? I mean, is that should that be the first step, folks take, or, maybe people are a little, they don't, it's a little intimidating maybe. I mean, how do you have that conversation with the client?
Max, who do you want to answer that? Because we're gonna all have different opinions on this.
Well, I think it's good.
There's going to be some spicy answers. I want to hear. Feel free to use the AMA, the questions panel, to tell us what you think about this question. All right, I'll start, and you all can disagree with me, everyone. I think you should do. If you ever heard me talk ever, you should do the least amount of work that is relevant to the client's need. When I say the least amount, it might mean maybe you're just working on that pitch page, and they need so much help with certain sections that actually getting out and doing that work, talking to customers, maybe getting the real estate situation figured out, maybe getting their product refined is the number one thing you need to do. So you need to kind of stop the process of planning too much before you sink a lot of work into something that's going to be very, very wrong. So it's a nuanced thing, and that's really where the power of a consultant, a professor, an incubator program can really help with that process, is actually keeping the amount of guessing about the future to a minimum, and then adding over time as you get more and more refined. And that includes the consulting process too. So, all right, I'll leave that open to everyone else. Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is really, I think you really only need a formal business plan if somebody has asked you for a formal business plan. And Tim Berry had a great analogy or metaphor for this, where a formal lender ready type business plan is like dressing your kid up for prom. Like it's just not practical for him to wear a tuxedo every day to school. But that one day a year, you might have to dress him up and send him to prom. That's kind of like your business plan. Your business plan should be something that's functional and easy to work with and easy to use, that has strategic value to you. And then when someone asks you for it, you might need to dress it up and present it as a formal plan. But for day-to-day use and this concept of growth planning and ongoing business planning, it's not really necessary.
Josh, you got any better analogies than prom?
I do like that. I'll take another spin at the same question. While I'll agree, not everyone needs a full business plan, I would strongly say that every entrepreneur needs a forecast. 100% of entrepreneurs need a forecast. Do they need a 5-year with 36 months of detail? No, not everyone. But yeah, I'm calling you out there. We're fighting words here. No, but every single, even the startup where they're trying to figure out, do I even have an idea? 100% you need a forecast, because before you spend too much time on this, you need to figure out, is this a business? Will it ever be profitable? What price should I charge? Am I paying myself? All of those questions. So that's a hill to die on in this sphere, I think, is that every business, every entrepreneur needs a forecast, 100%.
Fully agree. And I'll add that, like, every entrepreneur at various stages of their venture should be doing a lot of thinking about their business and a lot of research. And sometimes a business plan is a good way to guide them through that thinking that is going to be beneficial for them, particularly the financial model. It's just, I think that we get caught up in semantics of formal business plan where like they could be doing a lot of interviews, a lot of testing, a lot of research, a lot of good thinking, and capturing that in some type of business plan document. LivePlan can be a good place to hold all that stuff. but it doesn't necessarily need to be formal in the sense that you have a cover page, a table of contents, headers and footers, all that stuff.
Before we go to Cassie, I learned one thing recently. I think I told you this, right? So I was teaching at the University of Oregon, and I said exactly what Justin just said to the class. I said, the plan section, I actually don't really want to see a fully formalized. What I do want to see is all the work that you're doing. Customer interviews, get out and talk to these customers. So this is like a startups class. Get out and talk to the customers, talk about your pricing, talk about all the thinking that went into your pricing, not just we set the price at $2 because that's what our competitor, no, I want to know cost of materials, margin, all the kind of thinking that went into that. But it's a rough draft. It's just a place to put all your thoughts. And here's what I said to them. I said, it's like a trapper keeper for everything that you're working on. It's just throw it in there all loose and we'll hold it for you until you want to formalize it later. And I learned one thing. College students today do not know what a trapper keeper is. It changed the word folio, but I was surprised that they knew what that was. Anyway, that's a fun fact. Cassie, I feel like we've kind of covered all facets. Is there any other way to answer that question that's unique?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it great, and I definitely agree, especially on Josh's point on the fact that I think every business needs a forecast. And I am reading some comments in the Q&A that lenders require a business plan and demonstrated success. Those are absolutely the times when a formal business plan, is required and is needed, when again, someone's specifically, asking for it. But other times I personally don't think you need to put all the time into, that full 20+ page document unless you need to. Instead, start in the pitch and then of course, jump into the forecast.
Yeah, I think that's a great time to kind of go through forecast. There was a question from audience, and please, thank you for using that Q&A function. We still want those questions to come in, but they wanted us to actually build out a 5-year plan in the forecast and just start maybe with a revenue stream, or at least kind of give them a sense as to what that experience looks like from a first time experience using the forecast. Yeah.
All right. Well, we could take the rest of the webinar and just do that one then. All right. That's good. Actually, and let me kind of build off of what Josh said. So let me answer kind of like, sure, Josh didn't ask a question, but let me answer something that I think I would have if I heard what he said, which is, Josh's version of this recommendation was essentially, and I agree with this, there's always good reason to create a forecast. And that's even if you're in a very early stage, an idea stage, or if you're up and running and you have a forecast that you're working with. Oftentimes a consultant can come in and help refine that forecast. I would say 99% of the time, an entrepreneur that has made a forecast once in their life, it could use some work. And that's not an insult to anybody, because more often, especially Main Street businesses in the US, they've never made a financial forecast in their entire entrepreneurial life. They might have started 3 different restaurants. They might have run perfectly fine, or 1 failed and 2 were successful, that kind of thing. And they've never really done this kind of work. So the value that you can add is getting them to do this, because they're going to be more likely to succeed, less likely to fail, that kind of thing. Let me get to the answer to the question. So first off, this would be what a forecast would look like if we had already worked through it, right? So this is for this company called Balance and Flow. This is a sample company like we've talked about, based on a real company, and we'll have more and more of these over the next coming months. But you can see they've got services, that kind of thing. And I will actually answer this question, I promise. But I just wanted to show you what a final one looks like. When you get a certain number of revenue streams in here and you've entered all the numbers for them, you get this output that is all revenues, all expenses. You get a chart that has the P&L, the balance sheet, the cash flow statement. So all the pro forma sheets for the forecast all in one place are built for you. So that's great. But this is something that we've built and we spent time building. And in fact, this one is also synced to QuickBooks. And so we've got QuickBooks data to compare to, so we can talk about how far we are away from that forecast. That's great. So this is an up and running business that a consultant has been working with for some time. Months. You can see this forecast was created a while ago. Okay, let's just, you want to create a new company? Josh, you want to help me with this? You want to, should we just go quickly here?
Why don't we do the landscaping company? I for some reason, the grasshopper.
Let's go back to Max's company. So I'm going to ask you, Max.
Spiffy landscaping.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you really quick, and we're going to work fast here, okay? So if people want to put this on 0.5 speed later and watch it, that's great. Let's begin a forecast. Again, we're going to go faster, all right?
Yep.
You ready?
Yep.
what is a primary way that a residential landscaping company makes money?
Wait. Use the
What?
LivePlan assistant.
Wait, I want to hear Max's.
All right, yeah, let's do this. Let's do it.
And we'll see how it compares.
Okay,
Give me a few main ways that a landscaping company makes money.
yeah, a couple of revenue streams I can think of, subscription, right, weekly mows. So we're
Like a maintenance subscription.
maintenance subscription, and that would be one, and then another one would be, project-based work, right? So
Okay.
maybe putting in a retaining wall or something like that. So those are two unique kind of revenue streams I would use.
Okay, great. I asked for 3, you gave me 2. I love it. Stop there. Number 1, if I don't like to use AI or even look at AI in LivePlan right now, everything AI is in the purple box, and I can always hit this little X here and it'll go away. Please recognize that that's true. Also, please recognize that anything we do that has the word AI in it is experimental for now. We're gonna have all these little caveats. What I could do, if I'm working with Max, I could enter add revenue stream, and I could say, okay, unit sales, billable hours, recurring charges, revenue. That first thing you said was a subscription. So I'm gonna call that recurring charges, and I'm gonna say, what did you call it again? Something.
Weekly maintenance.
Maintenance, yeah.
Maintenance service. All right, so I'm going to call it that, and let's say that he has a pretty common way of charging for that. So recurring charges, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to start this in, back in January in this case. Maybe you started your business back in January. Although I could change this any time. Let's change it back in April. How will you enter the number of new customers? Well, this is a startup. So the number of new customers is going to vary over time.
Right.
And in fact, a lot of businesses want to choose vary over time. So now we're asking, how many new customers did you expect to sign up? Now, I'm going to ask Max a different type of question. Max, when your business is fully up and running, in your best imagination, in your best dreams of this business, how many weekly customers are signing up every month?
So, and again, these are new customers.
New
This is not
customer
my current
signups.
Customer base.
Yeah.
I would say getting 3 a week would be a stretch, but that would be a goal of mine. So let's say 12 a month.
So 12 a month. And how long until you could reach that mature state after your very first starting working?
Yeah, I think it's going to probably take me at least a summer to build, a good book of business, but it's going to take some time to get to that. But
Great.
I think-
Let's give it a full year. So we said like a full cycle, a full season, something like that. See, just to clarify here, this seems very casual, right? I'm just interviewing Max and using his words. And what I'm going to say is maybe in the first month, you can maybe sign up 1 person.
Sure. Yep.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my target goal here of 12 per month. Maybe kind of work backwards, 11, 10. I can also draw this line if people don't know that, by the way. And then let's just connect these lines. So I ended up at 8 in December, maybe 7, 6, and just draw this back down to this 1. And now I've got a really rough sketch of what a company could look like when we from 1 new customer a month to 12 new customers a month. And go ahead and do this. And Phil Wright, where do we put Phil Wright these days?
Yeah, applied values.
Thank you. Good Lord. It's not even called Phil Wright anymore.
Yeah.
Who's
And
Phil?
if we want to, just to show off some of the newer things here.
Oh, yeah, please.
And this would be interesting for a landscaping business. Like this is an interesting curve. I would imagine you would probably have more people interested in signing up as it gets warmer. So you might have some spikes here in the summer. So you'll have some seasonality basically with this business. What you can do is, since we have 2 years here, if you wanted to look at year-over-year growth, we can turn on this annual percentage change. And this is a really quick way just to say, hey, what would it look like if, I've already kind of thought about what my seasonality is. What would it look like if I just grew 10% year over year? We can forecast based on year-over-year growth and just apply that right. And now we have 10%, more signups in that last monthly prediction. So
Yeah.
quick way to model that.
Very common way to do, especially those kind of growth models, but also a client that you've got that's up and running. Again, you're making this forecast for the first time. A lot of times the reason clients care about this is because they want to maximize their growth potential, maximize their profitability, make sure they don't go out of business, right?
And just kind of see what next
Yeah.
year would look like.
So a lot of times the thought process of a startup versus an up and running business have a lot of similarities. We just want to distinguish them because of, you're not going to start from 0 sales if you're already up and running. Anyway,
Right.
So finally, is there an upfront fee? The first time you work with this person, Do you charge them something to get started, or is it just you go right into subscription?
You know, I think just being a scrappy, pulling myself by the bootstraps, I would say no fee initially. Maybe I
All right.
change that later on, but I'd say
Yeah.
initially no fee.
People who charge fees like gym memberships, that kind of thing, anything that requires some kind of installation or startup to get the subscription going, that's what that's for. How would you enter all right, so how we're going to enter this, is it a constant price or a varying amount of time? Are you going to change the price per week of this service?
It's going to be constant, right?
Okay, let's just set that, but if we wanted to, we just click this over. And then how much do you anticipate charging for this?
I'd say $25 a mow, so that would be what, per month, $100. That seems like a good round number.
Okay, so $100. And then how often? That's once a month. Great, so I'm just going to hit next. And then we're going to enter the one thing that is often most confusing about subscription-based services, and that's called churn rate. Now, if this was a realistic interview and I said, Max, what do you anticipate the churn rate being for this company? We might have some trouble. He probably doesn't know what that means. No offense to landscapers. It's probably he would say, well, how am I supposed to know the answer to that question, right? That kind of thing. Here's a great time to be an expert, right? One way we can get that answer is by knowing industry research or averages. We can continue down this interview path if I wanted and said, Max, in your experience, you're acquiring customers, but what feels to you like a successful business in terms of the number of customers that you lose in a given month?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, primarily I would think, well, I don't want any churn, right? I want to keep every client forever, but at the same time, not all clients are created equal, right? And I might have a handful of clients that it's just not worth the amount of time I'm spending at their place, and they're just difficult clients. So
Yeah,
I would say 5-10% a month seems good, but it's also different depending on the time of year, right? Like a lot of people don't want to
average it out.
Yeah, a lot of people, they stop their subscription, in the winter when they don't need it, right? So I think it's going to vary over the year, but I'd say 10% is a good.
Well, you said 5-10%, and so I'm just going to put in 7. And again, the good thing is I can always come back and edit this. So if I put in 7% here based on what Max just said, and I hit create, and then I'm ready to go, I can always come back and change that if it doesn't match industry standards or it doesn't match his actual experience over time. Honestly, whenever we make these kinds of forecasts, the quicker we make them, in my opinion, the better, because now I can look at what we've got here and I can say, oh, wow, okay, you are, making a certain amount of money here. You're maybe making enough to actually pay a salary. I can start asking questions like, Max, is this just you working? Because first of all, I think I'm ready to add a personnel item for you, the founder, right? I can add that in here. Very similar to how we just did everything else. I can add the major expenses for that item. And I can say, okay, what kind of equipment do you need? How much does it cost to mow your lawn? In fact, I can talk about direct costs, right? So what if I wanted to say, hey, for every subscription, every single month, is there some sort of direct cost that's associated with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would think fertilizer and weed and feed, that's going to be a direct cost for my clients, and also gas for the truck and also for the mower. But yeah, those are some direct costs I could think of. Okay,
so I'm going to call that subscription consumables. So every time I get that $100, I'm always having to pay out. So every time I do a weekly maintenance service, I have a direct cost, and I'm going to say it's a constant amount. And let's just say it's, I don't know, $15, whatever. Let's say you told me that, and that's good enough. So now what I've got is a list of these expenses. You can see they grow exactly in lockstep with the subscription rate that we've got. And overall, if I wanted to come into here to my profit and loss, my balance sheet, my cash flow, you can see that my profitability has now gone down. The amount that I could pay myself has started to go down. This is one of the key elements. And folks, back to the question that Josh asked, or answered before. If you are working with a client who's thinking about starting a business, the reason making a forecast for them as early as possible is so important is because it starts to answer some of the harder questions.
Right.
Will I ever be able to pay myself? Is this business going to be profitable, or is this more like a hobby that I'm making, right? So those are all the startup related questions. But the growth questions are, again, very similar in nature, right? If I doubled my employee base, do I increase my profitability? Right. Wow, what a great question to just sketch out as quickly as you can to get to the point where you are in, spitting distance of an answer, right? And you can always refine it from there, but you want to get to a point where you're actually having a conversation. So number one recommendation I have, when you're talking about financials, make it as conversational as possible. It gives you like the superpower, because then they will understand why the numbers are the way they are. They will have a dialogue with these numbers and with you, and they'll still feel the value of the process that you're going through with them. I think I've been talking for like 45 minutes here. Does anyone else want to chime in on this? What else we got here?
I've got a couple of quick notes related
Please.
to forecast. If you want to get some I'll do a plug right now. If you want to get some hands-on work in the forecast with some example client scenarios, we are doing a financial forecasting masterclass August 10th. You may have seen some emails for that. We'll probably maybe send out a link about that in the follow-up to anybody who attended this webinar, but that's a great way to get some really good, like in-depth, hands-on work using the LivePlan forecast if you want to build your skills in that area. The other thing that I'll mention, this is kind of related to the first question of, what do I do with a client who's just getting started in LivePlan, is the forecast is really a good area to highlight the LivePlan support team. So through the app, your clients, you will have direct access to chat with somebody on our customer advocacy team here at LivePlan. And if you've ever engaged with that resource, they are fantastic. They're here in the office, they're super knowledgeable about LivePlan, and they're very friendly and easy to work with. So that's something you can feel really confident pointing your clients, your students to that resource, and even drawing that line of like, hey, these are questions that I can help you with as the instructor, as your business consultant. But I'm not a LivePlan expert. Their team is there to help support you in using the app, and the forecast is a great place to highlight that, so that they know where to go if they have questions as they're putting their numbers in there.
Yeah, exactly. And even though you are a consultant, a professional, an instructor, whatever your role is in this person's life, rest assured that the app itself is made to be useful and usable by the business owners themselves. So yeah, like if you assign homework, you can rest assured that the chat will be there, our customer service will be there, our customer advocates will be there to help with any questions.
Yeah, and I think some people get the forecast and a budget, and they kind of confuse the two terms. I mean, they're very different. I know, Cassie, you're kind of passionate about this one, but like, how is a financial forecast different than, just a general budget for my business?
Well, how I like to position it is that a budget is really just focused on like the allocation of resources over a fixed period of time, usually a year. And a forecast is going to be more of a predictor of the future, where you can take in, what has happened previously, take in historical data and trends, maybe some market trends, of course, plans for the business in the upcoming years that your client may have. And a forecast will provide more of a broader perspective on projecting the outcomes for the business. And then, as we've already shown here, over a long period of time, up to 5 years in LivePlan. So I like to talk about a forecast being more of that strategic tool when thinking about the future of the business. Whereas a budget, while of course sometimes required, it's just more focused on the allocation of funds. I'm curious how you all would answer that question as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm curious how everyone on the audience will. Feel free to blast with whatever your answer is. What's your distinction?
Yeah,
I hear forecast and budget used interchangeably sometimes by some people. To me, the distinction is important. I think Cassie said it perfectly. Budget tends to mean this is like the total amount I'm allowed to spend on something.
Mm-hmm.
You give your kids a budget, you give your marketing team a budget, and that's how much they're allowed to spend on. That's how budgets tend to be treated from a business owner's perspective, as well as like on a personal finance level. Whereas a forecast is every element. It's essentially where the budget might be derived from. So it's the sort of overarching financial snapshot of the future of the whole business.
Yeah. And one other note is that you will hopefully have a bunch of different forecast scenarios, whereas your budget is typically fairly static. You have one budget, you're kind of following it, whereas with the forecast, it's much more open-ended. You can do a lot more what-ifing in the forecast and see, hey, if we wanted to double our revenue, what would that look like? How do we get there? Whereas with a budget, again, expense focus, you probably just have one, it's for a year, and you're probably not getting in and changing it too much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I work on the board with a nonprofit, and when I joined, they would do one budget every year. This is another distinction, probably. They would do one budget every single year, and it would not be changed throughout the entire year. Now, over the last 3 years, tell me, everyone think amongst yourselves what the pitfalls might be about setting a single budget and never changing it. So the other element I think that I would emphasize about a forecast, especially a forecast made in LivePlan, and we can plug LivePlan, right?
Yeah,
I can speak positively about this happening.
We've been doing that.
Not restricted. But I mean, but seriously, one of the things that we love to do is make it easily editable so that you can and will actually make those changes over time. It's just such an important way of thinking about a dynamic forecast that can respond to the future. Again, I say this 1,000 times, but anytime you think about the future, the one thing you know about your guess about that future is it's always wrong. So don't try to sit on a wrong guess for an entire year.
Right.
Come back every month, every quarter for startups, every day, every week, and make changes based on what the world has taught you.
I mean,
Please.
so like, if, I'm a consultant and I've already got my client to do their business plan, their pitch, they've done a couple of forecasts, but that last 2 steps of the growth plan that you just mentioned, the reviewing and refining your forecast. I mean, what's the cadence like I should be having these meetings with my client? Is it something that it's, once a week, once a month, once a quarter? Obviously each client, each business is different, but how often should I be having these kind of what if, scenario conversations with my client?
Justin, you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it depends on how much is changing with the business. For a good example is when the pandemic hit and everything changed. Our company went from doing this, pretty in-depth forecast update and review every quarter to doing it every month and doing it really consistently every month. I think we got down to like doing it every week. So I think, quarterly is probably the minimum that you would want to be doing this review and revise cycle. But if there's a lot of things changing with the business or the business environment, you might want to be doing this monthly because you really want to make sure that you're paying close attention to these things, updating them, and if cash flow is an issue or potentially an issue, it's like you really want to make sure that the modeling that you're using to look at your cash flow projections is up to date and accurate and be reflective of what's happening in reality.
Yeah. I think as a business stabilizes, and in this case, what we're looking at on screen here is, for anyone who hasn't used the dashboard feature, you're looking at plan versus actual. So data that has been imported from QuickBooks Online compared to the forecast that we've created. And this forecast was created years ago, actually, and it keeps rolling over time, and we keep moving forward with it. So you can see here in blue actuals, and in gray the forecast overlaid, and this is just revenue. Justin, to your point, if this was a client I was working with, first of all, we're doing pretty well here, right? And this is probably because we've been adjusting this forecast, maybe quarterly, if it's this stable, if the business doesn't have such highs and lows. But some businesses do have very big spikes or very big seasonality, like you mentioned earlier. And so we do want to kind of adjust over time. The only thing I would say about this forecast that I'm looking at is, in fact, the actuals have outpaced the plan for basically 5 months. Is it always good to outpace your plan by that much over a certain amount of time? Well, not for all businesses, right? Maybe you want to actually have a more accurate view of how much you might make and how much you might be able to hire or how fast you might be able to grow. So those kinds of things can come into play. And again, that's where that power of consulting comes in. Your own clients, your students, whatever, might look at this and say, okay, I guess that's good or whatever, but you can really add the value, the conversational value, the strategic value to what we're looking at here.
I think a great plug here, and I know Josh, don't want to forget about you, Josh. But do we at Palo Alto, do we offer business advising? I mean, is that something that we can offer, other advisors? I mean, and if so, where would I find that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. There's a couple ways I want to answer this. One is assuming that the audience that we're talking to today are educators, advisors, accountants. Obviously, most, if not all of you, offer advising. So why would this question come in? Well, sometimes you may have a capacity issue and like we talked about earlier, prioritizing or qualifying different types of clients that you work with and specialize with, but maybe there's another group that, well, you want them to get help or they need something, but you're not offering that. Well, we offer LivePlan services, and some of those services involve plan writing and forecast creation, I believe, and I think forecast review. And so just want to plug services. You may never have heard about this before, but for a number of years now, these are things that we've offered. Obviously, LivePlan is intended to be all inclusive, but sometimes people just say, I need someone to step in and take the lead on this for me and my business. So that's one great option, is LivePlan services. And then also, I just want to highlight, not knowing the whole audience, sometimes we're talking to educators, they've got a class, they're an adjunct, and they're also an entrepreneur. And they genuinely might think, well, if I've got a student who needs advising, where would I send them? So I just want to shout out to our SBA partner resources. We've been for decades now partnering with SBA partner resources, the Small Business Development Center, the Women's Business Centers, the Veterans Business Outreach Centers, SCORE, the Minority Business Development agencies. So all of those types of support out there in the world we're interacting with. So if you're one of those folks and you say, well, I didn't know that you work with centers like mine, let's talk more. Talk to us. We can share a little bit more about how we partner and work strategically. In fact, next week, Cassie and I will be in DC out at a conference with the Women's Business Center, the Association of Women's Business Centers, and then also the Veterans Business Outreach Centers. So we love partnering strategically. We know our lane and our strength is software and LivePlan and education and content and all those things. So we strategically align with those types of organizations.
I appreciate that, Josh. And this was probably the #1 requested topic coming in. It's kind of in the general zeitgeist. It's AI, right? Like AI it's kind of here to stay. It's every time I wake up and read the news, there's something new about AI. What are we doing with AI? How is it in the app? What's in the future? I think a lot of people might have some different feelings of AI. Like, is that going to replace my consulting business? I mean, how are we accepting AI and using it within LivePlan?
Yeah, let me kick off 2 big points. Number 1, we do not intend to replace any consultants or educators. It is not our goal. And in fact, in the broadest possible sense, everything that we've seen being developed in the Chat GPT, GPT-4 sort of cloud, all these kinds of other developments seem to indicate that we can honestly stick to our original concept with LivePlan, which is, first of all, helping businesses succeed and helping you help businesses succeed. That's number 1. And number 2, when it comes to this business planning or this lean planning, this business management process that you can do in LivePlan, so far, the AI work that we've put into this has only improved our ability to do the better work. And again, the better work is often the strategic conversations that come out of making a financial forecast. So I mentioned earlier, I want to spend as little time actually making the forecast as possible, right? Right. Justin asked a question earlier, which was, let's see what Max says. I forgot to do the second step. Let's see what Max says to his landscaping business revenue streams. And then let's go ahead and test. Boy, I've still got that company. Let's test what our AI suggests. Now I'm doing this live. Maybe it comes up with some bad suggestions, but one thing about AI in LivePlan, it's always in this purple box. If you are teaching a class and you wish this purple box did not appear in front of any of your students, talk to me, talk to Justin, Josh, Cassie, Amanda, talk to us. We can work with you on this. But I want to go ahead and get suggestions. So when I say this is just improving the existing process, right? Mm-hmm. I had to ask Max a question and maybe he didn't think about one revenue stream. Now I can say, get suggestions. All right, what do we got here? So Max, lawn mowing, mulching, and fertilizing services. Here's a word, hardscaping. That's pretty good, but no softscaping. Max, would you ever do snow removal services?
Yeah, I mean, that's, come November, December, grass isn't growing, what am I gonna be doing? That's a great conversation starter in terms of the seasonality.
All right, well, let's not talk too much about landscaping. We're having a nice silly time here, but my point is you can see how conversational this can become.
Yeah, right.
Right? So yes, Max did in fact forget about some revenue streams. When I asked him earlier, this AI piece helped me, a person who didn't ever hear the word hardscaping before in my life, helped me have a conversation with you about improving this forecast. And again, getting to the point where it's actually useful. What else am I forgetting, folks?
Well, I mean, just that, like you said, Max forgot about, but like revenue streams, like, I don't know. I think that what really excites me about this particular AI feature suggesting revenue streams is it really opens up the conversation and starts getting some more creative thinking happening. I mean, this is a great example of a client who has a very seasonal business. They might have some cash crunches come winter time, and it's not like you couldn't suggest this as an advisor, or the client couldn't go out and find this, but it's suggesting like, hey, here's some other ways that your business could earn revenue based on what other landscaping companies are servicing. And if you have a cash crunch in the winter, it's like, hey, let's see what it would look like to do snow removal services. Like, yeah, let's add that. And then that can spark maybe some research into seeing, well, what would it take? What kind of equipment would we need to buy? Would we need to hire somebody? How much demand is there in our area for that? Is this a La Nina year? Like, I don't know. But the concept, like the exciting thing is that it's in my opinion, it's opening up some creative thinking that might not have happened otherwise, or just making that conversation easier between you and the client to really brainstorm around these things. And to Peter's point, like our original promise with LivePlan is we really want to remove barriers and lower barriers to business success. So if you're working with somebody who doesn't have an accounting background, using a LivePlan forecast is going to be a really good way to lower that barrier. And with things like this, it's further delivering on that promise of lowering those barriers.
Josh or Cassie, I'm on the writing section, and I think that this is an interesting one as well. So again, a very common thing we're seeing out there in the world, help me write or help me improve, that kind of thing, right? So again, hey, we're no net right now, so I'm just gonna, we'll give this a shot. I'll using GPT.
You gotta click to help me write.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I was gonna write a little prompt in there.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna say, is this in Eugene, Oregon? Are you?
That's the Eugene, Oregon, yeah.
All right. I don't think this is gonna work well, but editors for my business. All right. I think that this is going to go poorly, but I can at least start the process of writing something. Okay. So a couple things I'm going to recommend here. What I'm trying to do here is generate some starting point for the writing process in a business plan. Number one, everyone who knows anything about AI, they can often just make things up. So I have no idea whether these competitive companies are really competitors, whether they're still in business, what their address is, that kind of thing. So you still need to do all the work here, but you can see that what we've generated here, I would consider this sort of a sample plan like text. What I mean by that is like the same way I would look at another business plan and think about it in terms of how I might write that section. This is a pretty good starting point in that same sense. Okay. Now, again, I would not even trust that Brightview is a real company. Maybe it is, and that's great, but the format is fine. And what we've tried to do is really refine how this section works for your industry, for the people that we know in this industry, and how they've written their plans in the past, and how the nature of this section in terms of its length and its content should be. So this is a great guideline. It may not actually be a useful as is input, but something to work with. And again, we're just trying to make that process easier. Yeah, from there, Max, you also asked where are things going?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just this last quarter has been like an explosion of new, AI functionality. There's like 4 or 5 different own independent AI. I know that we're going to continue moving forward. It's kind of out of Pandora's box. We're not going to go back to a pre-AI world, but I'm assuming that we're looking at how else we can use AI within LivePlan.
Yeah, and a couple things. If you're, again, if you're consulting and you're wondering how you're going to integrate AI into your own process, perhaps the features that we're going to continue to roll out over time are a nice free to you, because if you're already using LivePlan, these are just being added for free to the app.
Mhm.
Free and easy way to just integrate them directly into the services you're already offering. If you do need more training on how they could work, talk to us. Like, we're here for it. Attend the next webinar.
Yeah, and I know we're here for questions, but I would really like to solicit feedback as well from everybody who's in there. I mean, we are very interested to know how you're using any AI features in LivePlan and what you want to see, like what would be useful if you run into something, you're like, yeah, this is great, but I wish it did this instead, or gosh, it'd be great if there was some some AI in this feature. Like, let us know. We're at the stage now where it's exciting. We're trying to see how we can best utilize and leverage this new technology to help you and to help the entrepreneurs that you're serving. So let us know, even if it's some crazy off the wall idea that you have while you're in there. It's like, we want to see it, we want to hear it, and we want to work to make this as useful for you as possible.
And I think the general feedback has been, it is helpful, and it's not, obviously you can turn it on or off. If you don't want it, you have that ability to not see it. But the people who are using it, I believe we're getting some pretty good feedback on, it's elevating the conversations they're having with their client. They're not having to have that starter conversation, with a blank page. They can actually have a conversation with something on the page through AI. And I think it's been helping our clients. I believe that's the feedback we've gotten.
Yeah, Steve Blank, the author Steve Blank's big critique on like writing a full business plan is that you spend too much time writing the full business plan when you should have been doing whatever else is important for your business, right? We've always agreed with that. And if anything, if this can just make the process of writing a full sentence or writing a full paragraph easier, faster, more delightful, yet still engaged mentally with the person that we're working with and your clients and your students, then that is a win-win across all. That's just positive. Again, it brings us back to the conversational aspects. Why is that an important thing for your business? Is that indeed the intention that you meant to express? Or are you actually going to go a different direction as soon as we leave this building? That kind of thing. So those kinds of aspects of the conversation are what's important and are the value that a consultant has always added. In essence, the plan itself is essentially useless as is. The only time it's useful is when you have a conversation about why a thing is a certain way. Compare that plan to then what actually happened and say, why did I guess I was going to go this way, but the world treated me slightly differently? And how can I make my guess better next time? Those are the conversations that happen in consultative settings, probably almost exclusively, because the entrepreneurs themselves don't tend to make time for that in terms of an introspective, because they're just so busy. They don't ask themselves these questions because they wake up and they have to do work all day, they have to do the job all day. Right. So that's the value that we add. And I don't think that's changed. I think that's enhanced by the features we're adding. I hope, but like Justin said, tell us if you got any other opinions. Tell us if you'd love to see something that you're not seeing in there. We're here for it. We value all of y'all today.
And again, Josh, Cassie, don't need to, we remember you, but yeah, what kind of feedback are you two, getting from the consultants and educators you're talking to about the new AI features, we've implemented?
Josh first.
To my surprise, and I don't know why it's surprising, but almost all have been thrilled. I think maybe it was, I thought, oh, I don't know, what are they going to think? And every single time I've been showing it, both to educators and consultants alike, they're like, one, they say, this is huge for saving time, and it's helpful for, bilingual folks who maybe, first language isn't English, or, just entrepreneurs who they just don't write a lot, maybe based off of their skill set or profession. So that's been huge on the advising side. But then by and large, educators are saying, AI is here to stay. Love that you guys are staying ahead of it. Our students would probably be on the side in Chat GPT or some other AI anyway. So, two thumbs up. So.
Yeah, I would echo pretty much all of that. I've heard great feedback so far, especially on the business plan writing. A lot of people would get kind of stuck on the fact that there is some writing involved when you have to get in there and type it, even though LivePlan is great with a template and a lot of examples. So having more capability to kind of kickstart the writing process, and then also, help with editing and making it sound more persuasive or professional, writers in LivePlan are loving that. So all great feedback so far.
It's great to hear. Yeah, and we're getting close to time here. So last chance, Josh, Cassie, Justin, Trevor, any parting words for our guests that are that have stuck around with us for an hour?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to know while we're on the AI topic of what's next. I mean, I don't know what's like, fully what the development pipeline looks like, but where I'd like to see more of this is in the forecast. The same thing we do for suggesting revenue streams, doing that for expenses or direct costs or even assets. And I'd like to see more of that in there, and I think that's part of the direction we're going. So that I think is going to really help do the same, offer the same assistance we're doing for the plan writing experience right now, and putting together the numbers, which we all know can be a challenge.
Yeah, from like a business perspective, just the LivePlan business model, and not to get too vulnerable here. I mean, if anyone out there feels like afraid that AI might take some aspect of what you do professionally, like we're there with you. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone should feel a certain, at least respect for the fact that, like Max said, things are moving so fast. That's really what's impressive about this technology, is the speed at which things have been moving. You can maybe not love the ChatGPT 4 answer that you got for, give me a recipe for 2 pieces of chicken. Like that's fine. But the point that you have to respect is the fact that it is going to continue to evolve. And if it feels like it's a toddler giving you an answer right now, know that that toddler is growing up very quickly. And we are doing our best to make sure that we are adopting and really adapting both with this technology. So again, our goal is still the same. LivePlan wants to help entrepreneurs guess about the future and bring that into a strategic conversation. It wants to help those businesses succeed. It wants to help you meet your goals of helping those businesses succeed. That's what we're here for. And the more that we can integrate these features and these different types of AI components, the less likely it is that you'll have a student or an entrepreneur say, well, I can just go to GPT-4 directly and just say, do the thing, and it'll do it for me. Right. But there are still more conveniences. There's still more structure. There's still more, components to the process that we're doing that we can still offer as part of the experience, while still integrating, while still adapting and adopting those AI components as well. I hope that feels accessible to all of you all, but frankly, we're going to keep it easy on the front end as well. So easily and accessible from the app's perspective as well. If you have questions on things that roll out, ask us. We're here for it.
Yeah, and unfortunately we're out of time, but there will be that exit survey, another good opportunity to let us know how we did. If your topic wasn't covered, let us know, and hopefully we can, cover it in the next AMA. But I wanted to thank everyone for attending. And I think this was a fun, useful conversation.
I thought it was a nice chill time, and I would recommend we do it again sometime in the future. If you hated it, let us know.
Let us know.
Let us know. Let us know. That's fine too.
Yeah,
we appreciate that. How do we sign off from an AMA type webinar? Thanks everyone for your time.
Just the way
I like the awkward way.
Just like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. All right, thank you everyone.
All right. Are we supposed to end now? See, now is the awkward part.